The email notification sound pierced through the silence of the university library at exactly Bonlui Bay PM on a Tuesday that would forever divide my life into before and after. I stared at my laptop screen, watching the balance refresh one more time, praying to every god I didn't believe in that the numbers would change. Account balance. Mui hi-fi nam mui. $250,000 of my future had vanished without a trace. My name is Marilyn Rojas, and this is the story of how my own family tried to bury my dreams alive, and how I clawed my way back from the grave they dug. Just 1 week earlier, I had been floating on cloud 9, clutching the acceptance letter from Imperial College London like it was made of pure gold. The full scholarship for biomedical engineering worth Hai Chum Namui Hum was the culmination of 4 years of relentless studying, working 3 part-time jobs, and sacrificing every social event to maintain my bon GPA. While my classmates were out partying, I was in the lab until midnight. While they complained about hangovers, I was writing research papers that would later impress the scholarship committee. The video call with my family that night should have been one of pure celebration. I remember how my father Marcus beamed at me through the pixelated screen, his weathered hands clapping together as he called me Mija Brillante over and over. My mother Isabella wiped away tears that seemed genuine at the time, telling me how proud she was of her hardworking daughter. Even my younger sister Sophia managed to tear herself away from her Instagram feed long enough to offer what I thought was sincere congratulations. But then Sophia dropped her bombshell with the casual air of someone discussing the weather. "Oh, by the way, Jake proposed last weekend. We're thinking of buying a house together. Start building our life together properly." Her perfectly manicured nails gleamed as she held up her engagement ring, a modest but pretty solitaire that caught the light from her ring light setup. I should have recognized the calculation in my mother's eyes when she seamlessly transitioned from my achievement to my sister's news. "That's wonderful, mi amor. A young couple needs a proper home to start their family." Then she turned back to me with that honey-sweet voice that had manipulated me into compliance my entire life. "Marilyn, dear, where will the scholarship fund send the money? For safety, why don't you have them transfer it to our joint account? I'll keep it secure for you, and when you need it in London, I'll wire it over immediately." The joint account had been opened when I was 16 and started my first job at a local diner. It seemed practical at the time, a way for Mom to help me manage my money and save for college. I had trusted her completely then, just as I trusted her completely on that video call. My parents had always preached about family sticking together, about how we Rojas women were strong and how we supported each other no matter what. How could I have known that their version of support was conditional, reserved only for the daughter who fit their traditional expectations? So I said yes. God help me, I said yes. The next week passed in a blur of preparation. I quit my jobs, sold most of my belongings, and spent my last paycheck on warm clothes for London's climate. My best friend David Chen, a sharp-minded law student who had been my anchor throughout college, helped me pack. He had always been suspicious of my family's dynamics, though he was too polite to say so directly. "Are you sure about keeping your money in your mom's account?" he asked while folding my sweaters. "Most international students set up their own accounts for these things." I laughed off his concern. "David, she's my mother. Who else can I trust if not family?" The irony of those words would haunt me for months afterward. The email from Imperial College's finance department arrived while I was researching London neighborhoods in the library. They needed confirmation of the initial deposit to secure my dormitory room. My heart hammered with excitement as I logged into the joint account, already mentally picking out which cafes I'd study in near campus. That's when my world imploded. Café Namui. I refreshed the page, certain there was a technical error. The balance remained the same. $250,000 doesn't just evaporate. It doesn't slip through digital cracks or get lost in banking limbo. Someone had to have taken it deliberately, systematically, with full knowledge of what they were destroying. My hands shook so violently that I could barely type as I checked the transaction history. There it was, clear as daylight. A series of withdrawals over the past 3 days, all bearing my forged signature, totaling exactly Hai Chum Namui, Hum. The final transaction was labeled Property Deposit, Mutnin Hai Chum Bonui Bay Maple Street. I knew that address. It was the charming Victorian house 3 blocks from where Sophia still lived with our parents, the one she'd been gushing about on social media for weeks. The one with the wraparound porch and the garden that would be perfect for future babies. The 30-minute drive home felt like a death march. Every red light was a mockery, every cheerful song on the radio a slap in the face. I practiced what I would say, how I would demand an explanation, how surely there had to be some misunderstanding. Maybe they had borrowed it temporarily. Maybe they were planning to replace it before I needed it. Maybe they had a logical explanation that would make everything make sense again. I found them in the kitchen, celebrating. An expensive bottle of champagne sat open on the counter, and they were toasting with crystal glasses I'd never seen before. The sight of their joy while my future lay in ruins made me physically ill. "Marilyn." Mom chirped when she saw me, her cheeks flushed with wine and satisfaction. "Perfect timing. We're celebrating Sophia's house purchase. The closing went through today." I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. I just stood there in the doorway, watching these people who had raised me, who had kissed my scraped knees and attended my graduation, celebrating the murder of my dreams. Where's my money? The words came out as a whisper, but they cut through the festive atmosphere like a blade. Dad's smile faltered first. What money, Mija? My scholarship money, all of it, gone. My voice grew stronger with each word, fueled by a rage I'd never experienced before. Where is my money? Ha. Mom had the audacity to look confused, tilting her head like a concerned parent dealing with a hysterical child. Oh, sweetheart, it's not gone. It's right there. She gestured toward the window where a sold sign stood proudly in front of what used to be someone else's dream home. We used it for Sophia's down payment. An investment in the family's future. The casual way she said it, as if my scholarship was just household money to be spent on whatever caught their fancy, sent me into a fury I didn't know I was capable of. That wasn't family money. That was my money, my scholarship, my future. Dad stepped forward, his expression shifting into the manipulative mask I now recognized had been hiding in plain sight my entire life. Now, Marilyn, you're being dramatic. You're smart, you'll find another way, but Sophia needs stability now. She can't wait years for another opportunity. I've been waiting my whole life for this opportunity. I screamed, my voice cracking with the weight of 4 years of sacrifice. I worked 3 jobs. I haven't had a social life since high school. I've given up everything for this, and you just handed it over to her like it was pocket change. Sophia emerged from the living room, her engagement ring catching the kitchen light as she crossed her arms defensively. God, Marilyn, why are you being so selfish? It's just money. You'll make more. But this house is our foundation for starting a family. Some things are more important than your little school project. Something inside me snapped. I grabbed the nearest object, a ceramic vase filled with fresh flowers that I had bought Mom for Mother's Day with my first paycheck from the diner, and hurled it against the wall. The crash was magnificent, satisfying in a way that terrified me. Fragments scattered across the pristine floor like the pieces of my shattered trust. My little school project. I was beyond screaming now, my voice raw and primal. That was Imperial College London. That was biomedical engineering. That was my shot at changing the world, at making something of myself, at proving that a girl from our neighborhood could rise above this. I gestured wildly at the suburban mediocrity that surrounded us. Mom's mask slipped completely. Don't you dare talk about your home like that. We sacrificed everything to give you girls opportunities, and this is how you repay us? Throwing tantrums like a spoiled child? Sacrificed everything? I laughed, but there was no humor in it, only bitter irony. You sacrificed nothing. I sacrificed everything. I sacrificed my teenage years, my college experience, my social life, my mental health, all so I could earn that scholarship, and you threw it away for Sophia's suburban fairy tale. The argument escalated until Dad threatened to call the police if I didn't calm down, and Mom accused me of being jealous of my sister's happiness. They painted me as the unreasonable one, the selfish daughter who couldn't be happy for her family's success. In their twisted narrative, I was the villain for not graciously accepting the theft of my future. I left that night with nothing but the clothes on my back and the devastating realization that I was completely alone in the world. David picked me up from a gas station 2 miles from my house, where I'd been sitting on the curb crying, until a concerned clerk asked if I needed help. They stole it. I told him as I collapsed into his passenger seat. They stole all of it. David didn't say I told you so, though he would have been justified. Instead, he drove me to his apartment near campus and made tea while I told him everything. As a law student, he understood the gravity of what had happened in ways that went beyond the emotional devastation. Amy, he said, using the nickname only he was allowed to use, this isn't just a family dispute. This is fraud, identity theft, forgery. Your parents committed multiple felonies. I spent that first night on his couch, staring at the ceiling, and trying to process the fact that my own parents had committed crimes against me. The next morning brought a devastating email from Imperial College. Due to the missing deposit, my scholarship had been revoked and awarded to the next candidate. 24 hours earlier, I had been a scholarship recipient with a bright future. Now I was homeless, unemployed, and watching my dreams get handed to someone else. David helped me find a job at a coffee shop near campus. The manager was willing to pay me under the table while I figured out my living situation. Every morning, I served overpriced lattes to students heading to classes I should have been taking. Every evening, I counted tips that wouldn't even cover a single textbook. The depression hit me like a sledgehammer. Some days, I could barely get out of bed. David would find me on his couch at 2 p.m., still in the same clothes, staring at nothing. He never complained, never made me feel like a burden. We have to fight this, he said one evening. What they did to you isn't just morally wrong, it's illegal. We can make them pay. At first, I resisted. They were still my family, despite everything. But as weeks turned into months, And as my parents' calls shifted from defensive to angry to threatening, I realized they had already crossed every line that mattered. David helped me gather evidence. We requested bank statements, collected email correspondence with the Scholarship Foundation, and documented every fraudulent signature. Mrs. Henderson, from the university's financial aid office, was appalled when she learned what had happened. She provided official documentation, proving that the scholarship had been awarded specifically to me. The smoking gun came when we obtained copies of the real estate documents. There was my forged signature on the property purchase agreement. The handwriting analysis confirmed what we already knew. Someone had been practicing my signature for weeks before executing their plan. They didn't just steal from you impulsively, David explained. This was premeditated. They planned this fraud for weeks, maybe months. They knew exactly what they were doing. David drafted a formal legal document outlining the fraud and giving my parents 72 hours to return the stolen funds or face criminal prosecution. We sent copies to my parents, to Sophia, to the real estate company, and to the mortgage company providing Sophia's loan. The response was swift. The real estate company immediately froze the sale pending investigation. The mortgage company launched their own fraud investigation. Within 48 hours, Sophia's home loan was revoked, and their earnest money was seized. The phone calls started that same evening. First Dad, trying his usual manipulation. Mija, you're tearing this family apart. Is some school really more important than your sister's happiness? When I didn't answer, Mom called, alternating between fake tears and genuine threats. If you go through with this, you'll be dead to us. But it was Sophia's call that revealed their true selfishness. Marilyn, you've ruined everything. Jake is furious. His parents think I'm from a family of criminals, and now we can't get a loan anywhere. How could you be so vindictive over money? Over money. As if my stolen future was equivalent to loose change. I let the 72-hour deadline pass without responding. David filed the official complaint with both the bank's fraud department and the local prosecutor's office. The evidence was overwhelming. The consequences unfolded like dominoes falling. The bank immediately froze all accounts associated with my parents. Their credit scores plummeted as the fraud investigation appeared on their financial records. Sophia lost not only the house but also her relationship, as Jake's family wanted nothing to do with what they perceived as a criminal family. The real justice came when the prosecutor's office decided to pursue criminal charges. Financial fraud over $250,000 was a felony, and the premeditation made it even more serious. My parents faced potential prison time. 3 months after my money was stolen, I received a call from David while working the morning shift. Amy, they want to settle. They're offering full restitution plus interest to avoid criminal prosecution. The settlement negotiations were handled entirely through lawyers. I refused to speak directly to my parents. They offered to sell their house, the one I had grown up in, to raise money for restitution. The irony was perfect. They had stolen my future to buy Sophia a house, and now they would lose their own house to give me back what they had taken. The day I received the cashier's check for $267,000, the original amount, plus interest and legal fees, I didn't feel triumph. I felt exhausted. The money couldn't give me back the year I'd lost or the family I thought I'd had, but it could give me back my future. Mrs. Henderson worked with Imperial College to defer my admission for 1 year due to extraordinary family circumstances. The scholarship was restored and I was able to resume my plans for London. The day I left for London, David drove me to the airport. I had changed my name legally, dropping the family surname that now felt like a weight. Marilyn Chen had a nice ring to it, and David's family had embraced me as their own. Are you really never going to speak to them again? David asked as we stood in the departure terminal. I considered the question seriously. My parents had made several attempts to reconcile, usually around holidays. They claimed they were sorry, that they had made a mistake, that families should forgive and move forward. But their apologies always came with justifications about trying to help Sophia, how they thought I would understand, how they never meant to hurt me so badly. They didn't understand that this wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the fundamental violation of trust, the calculated betrayal, the months of lying to my face while planning to destroy my future. It was about the fact that when forced to choose between their daughters, they had chosen the one who fit their traditional expectations over the one who had earned their support through hard work. I don't know, I answered honestly. Maybe someday. But right now, I need to focus on building a life that belongs entirely to me. As my plane lifted off, I looked down at the city where I'd grown up, where I'd learned hard lessons about family loyalty and personal boundaries. Somewhere down there, my parents were living in a small apartment, their credit ruined, their retirement savings depleted, their golden child married to a man whose family would never fully trust them. Somewhere down there, Sophia was learning that actions have consequences, but I was heading somewhere else entirely. I was heading toward a future I had fought for, earned twice over, and would never take for granted again. I was heading toward a life where I would never again confuse manipulation with love or sacrifice with weakness. London stretched ahead of me like a promise, filled with laboratories and lectures, research opportunities, and the chance to become the biomedical engineer I had always dreamed of being. More than that, it was filled with the chance to become a person who knew her worth, who set firm boundaries, and who had learned the difference between the family you're born into and the family you choose. The little girl who had trusted without question, who had sacrificed without hesitation, who had believed that family meant unconditional support, was gone. In her place sat a young woman who understood that love without respect is manipulation, that sacrifice without appreciation is exploitation, and that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for toxic people is to remove yourself from their lives entirely. As England's coastline came into view below, I smiled for the first time in months. I was free, I was funded, and I was finally, truly, going home.